In solo leveling, after the battle between Sung Dripwoo and the Demon King Baran ended with my glorious king's victory, the sun started to set as the system stated he had reached level 97. The low-ranking soldiers then began to collect the spoils of war, with the best items that were gained being the Demon Monarch's ring, Demon King's longsword, Demon King's daggers, Baran's horns, and finally the purified blood of the Demon King. Having found the Demon Monarch's ring, the set effects would be activated, which would raise every single one of his stats by 15 points. But the most important item was the purified blood of the Demon King. Its description stated that it was a liquid made from the purified blood of Baran, and it contained a powerful magic. Although it had been purified, poisonous substances still remained. So in order to use the item as a potion, he must use the fragment of the world tree and the spring water from the forest of echoes to neutralize the poison. The consumable item Holy Water of Life was now ready to be crafted, and as Essel asked Dripwoo if he was all right, the system asked if he wanted to make the item. He confirmed it, making the system begin crafting the Holy Water of Life, saying that the probability of success and the number of items crafted would depend on the crafter's intelligence stat points. And as the system began to count down, Dripwoo stated that if he had known about this, he would have focused on increasing his intelligence stat. Though Essel said that if he was talking about the level of skill needed to craft the item, he shouldn't have an issue. The system continued the countdown from 8 to 1, and finally, the system stated that the item was successfully crafted, and he had obtained 6 bottles of the Holy Water of Life. He was confused since only some of the Demon King's blood and World Tree fragment were used, but the spring water from the Forest of Echoes was completely gone. This made him question if it meant that not all of the materials were needed to be used to craft an item, but only the needed amount. He held in his hand the item he so desperately desired, with its description stating that it was of S rarity and that it was a mysterious potion that uses powerful magic to cure the user of all illnesses, and that the entire bottle must be consumed in order for the potion to take full effect. Dripwoo then asked himself if the item would really be able to cure his mother's illness, saying he wanted to find out right at this second. Iron then dragged the wyvern's corpse over to my glorious king, making him say that it was a pleasant surprise and that he caught on fast. He then spoke the command, "Arise," shocking Essel as he said that he couldn't turn demons into shadow soldiers, but it seemed like the wyvern was an exception. The system then asked him to choose a name for his soldier, but he didn't seem to remember whether it was Kaizelian or Kalakalan, making Essel say that he was pretty bad with names, though in the end he bestowed upon him the name Kaizel. Essel then stated that if they wrote it, they would be able to get back to her clan in no time. But Dripwoo only questioned if he would really have to go down every floor in order to exit the demon's castle, saying he wanted to leave this place as quickly as possible. Essel, still yapping in the back, said that her clan would hold a banquet once they returned, and that her father would be very pleased. But Dripwoo remembered that he still hadn't received his quest rewards yet. The system then stated that he had received the top-tier runestone containing the skill Shadow Exchange, along with 30 bonus stats and the Demon Slayer title. He held the runestone in his hand, and after cracking that bad boy open, shadows swerved around him with the skill's description stating that the caster was able to swap positions with a selected shadow soldier. But once used, it wouldn't be able to be used again until a 3-hour cooldown had passed, though the cooldown period would depend on the level of the skill. Dripwoo shouted, saying it was awesome. He would now be able to swap places with his soldiers no matter where they were. He could basically teleport. He then turned around, telling his soldiers they did a good job, but apologized to Essel, saying she would have to return without him, making her reply asking what about the banquet. But Dripwoo quickly activated Shadow Exchange, saying that the Radish clan on the 80th floor was too far away and that he would see her around, which was the biggest lie ever told, disappearing in an instant before she could even say a word. The system then stated that since he defeated the boss, the dungeon would now be restored to its original form. Essel turned to look at one of the soldiers, questioning what the hell just happened, though he just shook his head, making her sigh in disappointment. My glorious king then appeared at the other side, saying that he had arrived at his neighborhood. He thought to himself that it had actually worked. He actually swapped places. He quickly jumped into the air, commanding Kaizel to come out. The shadow stood as his foothold as he then flew into the distance, going down as the #1 aura farmer in history at the Hunter Association headquarters. Woo Jinchul explained that the video he saw before him was sent from Japan, explaining that it was taken by a satellite camera that could detect mana. Since it was a documentation of the first, second, and third search and destroy missions, the chairman stated that it was just just as Goto Ryuji assured them. The ants came crawling out of their tunnels, leaving behind the Ant Queen and her guards. And the fact that the ants were changing their appearance was proof that they were evolving with each generation. With each generation lasting about a year, since that was how long their lifespan lasted. He was worried about the ants guarding the queen, but there were always a few beasts guarding the boss in any high-ranking dungeon. The chairman then asked what the chances were that the ants would return to the tunnels after learning that their queen was in danger before they got the job done. Jinchul responded saying that they would be sending out jamming signals. The chairman was confused, but he went on to explain that the ants communicated with each other using special waves, so he's been told that they would be using radio signals to confuse them, making the chairman ask if all they would really have to worry about is the queen and her guards. The chairman suddenly sensed a disturbance in the force and asked Jinchul if he felt that just now, but he had absolutely no clue. He could feel the mana waves even though they were coming from a great distance, questioning what the hell was happening. He then asked Jinchul if he was able to get in touch with Drippy Woo, but he responded saying that he was trying his best. At the other side of the city, someone asked if he just felt that. Another guy responded saying he did, stating that just because he's retired didn't mean he's lost his touch. Baek Yoonho questioned what that was just now, as the other guy replied saying that it was probably Choi Jongin and Cha Hai-in duking it out over their shares in the guild or something. Little do they know it was my glorious king spreading his divine aura across the city. Yoonho then poured another glass for the guy, making him say that it was thoughtful of his highness. As the S-rank healer Min Byung-gu told him to turn that frown upside down or he would get wrinkles from scowling like that all the time. The chapter then ended showing the item information of the weapons Drippy Woo acquired after defeating Demon King Baran. Paused to read. He asked Yoonho if he wanted to hear something funny, but he responded saying no while taking a drink of his cup. Byung-gu went on to say that he got him, making Yoonho think that everything about him, including his sense of humor, was a little odd. He was the first S-ranker to have retired despite being in perfect condition. He wasn't just the first, but the only one in the entire world. S-rankers were paid very handsomely, so he wondered just who else would quit something like that, just because they didn't feel like being a hunter. He didn't even come from a wealthy family. Byung-gu then asked Yoonho if he was serious about going, but when he confirmed it, he said that they both saw how Yoon-sok died back then. He replied, saying that that was all the more reason to go. If they didn't deal with the ants, everyone in the country would suffer the same fate. This made Byung-gu ask when he became so patriotic. Yoonho responded saying that he had to go either way, so he might as well do it for a good reason. But Byung-gu stated that there was no way in hell he was going, saying that if he came here looking to recruit another hunter, then he'd come to the wrong. Yoonho interrupted saying that that wasn't the case. He came here to say his goodbyes since nobody knows what might happen, and he may never get another chance to see him, leaving him speechless. Byung-gu then stated that he was preparing to take the teacher certification exam since he just wanted to be a teacher and live a normal life. This surprised Yoonho as Byung-gu went on to say that Yujin Construction was trying to form a guild and were looking for experienced hunters. They've offered him the guild master position, and since his retirement, many different companies have made him generous offers as well. But he started to tremble, saying that he didn't look like it, but he wasn't fit for a job where you must unalive or be unalive. That was the reason he was taking the teacher certification exam to teach Korean history. Yoonho replied asking why Korean history. Byung-gu responded saying that he knew he loved him some historical dramas, making Yoonho say that he was a nutcase. Byung-gu went on to say that this was just what an ordinary life looked like. He only wanted to read about war in history books, not to fight in one, making Yoonho think to himself that he was right. He was the normal one, and hunters were the abnormal ones. He then went on to think that there weren't many hunters who disliked fighting magic beasts, but a few healers didn't like to since they were all about healing others, making him question if an affinity for fighting must be required to become an awakened being. But he thought that there was no way, pouring Byung-gu another glass. At a hospital, the curtains of the window flapped around as my glorious king stood above his sleeping mother, aura farming like usual. He thought to himself that if something went wrong, there was no turning back. She may not be capable of swallowing the water of life, and even if she did, there was no guarantee that she would be cured. But he's seen the system work many miracles until now, and what has happened to him was a truly incredible story. It was all thanks to the powers of the system. He started out as an E rank and came all this way, so he would put his trust on the system once more. He slid over the bottle, but his hand soon began to tremble, making him take in a deep breath in order to calm his nerves, telling himself please as he fed her the elixir. He noticed the scar on the side of her neck, making him remember when it happened. All he wanted to do was wash his mother's hair, but when she came over to ask if he was okay, okay and if he was hurt anywhere, made Jinwoo say that his mom was worried about him even though it was he who made the horrible mistake. He was the one who gave her that scar. Seeing the color return to her face made him ask why she wasn't waking up. He begged for her to open her eyes. She was the only reason he wanted to become stronger, begging her to wake up. He asked her to let him carry all the weight that she had been burdened with for all these years. Back at the house, Gina, in the middle of studying, said that she couldn't concentrate. And after walking out of a convenience store, she said that it was going to be summer soon, since the wind felt a little warm. Jinwoo looked down in disappointment, fearing that it didn't work. But his mother soon awakened and asked Jinwoo if that was him. Drizzy-woo looked surprised that she had finally awoken, as she then asked how long she had been asleep for. He replied saying that it had been 4 years. His hand started shaking as his mother asked if Gina was doing all right. He replied that she was doing well. She then thanked him for all he had done, saying that he kept his promise. She held his hand, saying that he was hurt, telling her son that he must have gone through a lot while she was asleep. Her words made him clench his mouth as he began to sob without being able to hold back his tears, telling his mother that he did. "No, I'm not crying." Baldy over here suddenly asked if someone had really woken up from the eternal slumber, saying that it was an unprecedented event. The doctor went on to say that the patient's guardian was demanding that she be discharged from the hospital, making Baldy say absolutely not, since the patient's condition shouldn't be stable because she was bedridden for over 4 years, saying she probably couldn't even walk. But the doctor responded saying that all of her tests came back normal, meaning she was completely healthy and could even walk by herself. This made Baldy think it was impossible. She hadn't moved for the past 4 years, yet he was saying her body was functioning perfectly. The doctor went on to ask if it was maybe because of the life support machine. But the Baldy stated that even if she was fine, they couldn't just discharge her from the hospital since they needed to inform the medical community about this. But the doctor replied saying that he tried to reason with the patient's guardian, but he was no ordinary person. He then whispered to the Baldy asking if he had heard about Sung Dripwoo, who had recently become the country's 10th S-ranker. The Baldy didn't want the smoke, so he responded saying that a hospital shouldn't keep a perfectly healthy patient from going home, and it was only right that they discharge her. The next day, Gina arrived to see her mother as she was surprised to see how much she's grown. She began bawling her eyes out, seeing that she had finally awoken after all these years, as they embraced each other tightly. Jinwoo in the back, seeing the sight before him, stated that all of his hard work had paid off. It felt like he was being rewarded for everything he's been through, but he was worried that as a hunter, he's crossed a bridge of no return. Sitting outside on a bench, he thought to himself that he hadn't checked his phone in a while since he was in the demon's castle. He had a ton of missed calls, though if it was something urgent, they would probably call him back soon enough. He then saw an article containing a sighting of Kaisel flying through the sky, making him question why reporters were writing about this. He suddenly received a call from Go Gun-hee, the chairman of the Hunter Association, making Drippy-woo ask if something had happened. The chairman went on to say that he's sure he's heard by now, but he had absolutely no idea what he was talking about, making the chairman ask if he hasn't been watching the news. This made Drippy-woo think it was probably about Kaisel, telling the chairman he was going to be careful with that from now on. But the chairman was confused, making Drippy-woo say if he could ask about what he was talking about since he was off the grid until now and didn't have access to his phone. The chairman responded saying that it really seemed that he hasn't heard anything yet and asked if it would be all right if he told him in person, saying he would stop by today, though Drippy-woo replied saying he would go to him instead. After the president of the Hunter Association stated that the operation would be launching in 4 days, they would be going to Jeju Island to exterminate all of the goddamn ants. But to pull it off, they needed the help of my glorious king. He stated that retaking Jeju Island was every citizen's desire, asking Drippy-woo to lend them a hand in the fight. But he thought to himself that under normal circumstances, he would jump at the opportunity to go somewhere with high-ranking beasts so that he could level up. But he wanted to spend time with his family. And before he could give his answer, he suddenly felt a tremendous surge of mana. The chairman asked if there was something wrong, making Drippy-woo say that it was nothing serious, but it seemed that there were hunters fighting nearby. The chairman smiled, saying that it was as he expected. His senses were sharp. He was impressed that he managed to feel that from such a distance. He went on to explain that the S-rankers were probably warming up in the gym right about now. And the reason for that was because there were only 4 days left until the raid. The Japanese S-ranks, including Goto Ryuji, were here as well. Drippy-woo asked if by Goto Ryuji he was talking about. The chairman confirmed it, saying that it was indeed the greatest hunter in Japan. It was a name that everyone had probably heard of at least least once in their lives, even if they weren't a hunter. He then asked Drippywoo if he would like to go with him to the gym. Baek Yoonho, in his awakened state, suddenly bolted forward, entering into a lock with his opponent. But the op suddenly put his hand on his shoulder, kicking his lower foot, and in an instant, he twisted his body upside down like he was a rag doll. The man then told Coach Baek that a young guy like him should be stronger than this, but Yoonho responded, telling Coach Ma that he was no coach. Both hunters went back into their standoff, with their battle creating shockwaves so strong that they could be felt across the arena. The chairman went on to say that this many S-rankers gathered in one place wasn't something you could see every day. Drippywoo stated that it looked like Yoonho was struggling a bit, but someone interrupted, saying that it was true. However, if Baek Yoonho were to attack using his full force, he wouldn't be able to keep up. Aizen then told my glorious king that it had been a while, stating that the person in uniform over there was the S-ranker Ma Dong-wook, the leader of the Fame Guild. Choi Jong-un stated that it would put Yoonho in an awkward position if he fought at maximum capacity, since he would transform into a monster once he got serious. Choi went on to state that the Japanese S-rankers had finally gathered, which included Ippei Izawa, Mari Ishida, Kenzo Tanaka, Minoru Hoshino, Atsushi Kumamoto, Muscle Mami Kanai Tawata, Tatsumi Fujishima, Kei, Akari Shimizu, and the one and only Goto Ryuji. Drippywoo was intrigued by Ryuji as Akari asked Hanakawa who my glorious king was. She responded, saying that he was Sung Dripwoo, the hunter who recently became an S-rank. Ryuji questioned if he was an assassin type, saying that even if he were, trying to hide that enormous amount of aura was impossible. He then said that he must be an exceptional assassin, but Hanakawa corrected him, saying that he was a mage type. Ryuji replied, saying that it was impossible, making Hanakawa say that it was officially confirmed. Lim Taegyu went on to say that it looked like the guy who ruined Min Sung's debut was here. Mami Cha thought to herself that she knew he must have been the reason why the air felt different. Mari Ishida noticed my king's presence, stating that South Korea's 10th S-rank was over there. But Kei responded, telling her not to talk to him because he felt like throwing up due to all of the S-ranks gathered here. He then diverted his gaze toward Mami Cha, saying that it looked like she had a nose as sensitive as his, though he thought she was a few tiers below him since she was only using a handkerchief, questioning if she would think he was hitting on her if he tried to strike up a conversation, regretting that he didn't learn Korean beforehand. Seeing the duel between hunters made Hanakawa ask if they were really considered Korea's strongest, saying that they were mediocre at best. She stated that she's been watching Ryuji's raids from the sidelines for quite some time, which is why she was no longer impressed by S-ranks anymore. Nobody asked you that, buddy. Ryuji replied, saying that he couldn't agree with her, stating that there seemed to be one notable hunter while staring at Mami Cha. A hunter came up to her asking if she thought he wouldn't understand all the shit she was talking only because she was speaking Japanese, stating that he learned Japanese in high school as his second language. But Hanakawa replied, questioning who he was, making Yoontae shout, saying that the man before her was none other than the guild master of the Knights Guild, Park Jong-soo. Hanakawa said she's never heard of him before, making Yoontae say that he was an A rank, not an S rank, which is why she probably didn't hear of him before. But their guild was one of the 5 major guilds in South Korea, and they've recruited the largest number of A ranks. Hanakawa then asked if he was joining the raid in Jeju, saying she thought only the S ranks were allowed to join, making both Jong-soo and Yoontae look nervous and annoyed. Ryuji asked what they were talking about as Yoontae shouted, saying that Mr. Park was on the defense team in charge of blocking off the island. This made Hanakawa say that it was good to hear since they couldn't assign an important task to an A rank. But Ryuji told her to stop right away if she was being discourteous to them. Jong-soo told Yoontae to knock it off since she was only an interpreter tagging along so she wouldn't know anything, making Hanakawa say if he would like to try her, asking if he couldn't take on a mere interpreter that was simply tagging along. Jong-soo looked tired of this shit, telling the interpreter to quit dissing him, but she replied asking if he was a non-combatant. Both my glorious king and Choi Jong-un watched the ongoing confrontation, saying that things were about to get interesting. Jong-soo stated that if they were going to do this, they should lay down some ground rules since it was better than just aimlessly duking it out. The rules were simple. The first person to grab the opponent's wrist wins, and the one who gets their wrist caught loses. Hanakawa thought that it looked like she wouldn't be able to attack right away, saying that they would have to play mind games with each other, She then asked if he really called that a ready stance, making Jong-soo reply telling her not to worry since he wasn't going to take his hand out unless it was to grab her wrist. This made Hanekawa think that he was confident in his speed, telling him to begin. In solo leveling, a sparring match between Japanese A-rank Hanekawa and South Korea A-rank Park Jong-soo was about to begin, with the winner being whoever manages to grab their opponent's wrist. Hanekawa suddenly rushed toward the hunter in an instant, making the first move. Jong-soo was easily dodging every single one of her attacks, making her say that she was going to wipe that pretentious look off his face. But Hanekawa's hand was suddenly smacked into the air. As Jong-soo stated for the record, he didn't hit her, and it was just a little shove. She replied saying she was having a hard time understanding his accent, and that he looked stupid trying to act cool with his pants ripped. Seeing him distracted made her think it was the perfect chance, but Jong-soo suddenly grabbed her wrist, telling Miss Interpreter that she was too slow. Hanekawa questioned what had just happened, as Jong-soo explained that she was the type that would always hide behind a tank, and it also seemed like she had no one-to-one combat experience. But here in South Korea, they would run into troublemakers every now and then, which meant they would sometimes have to fight their own kind. They would even have to unalive them sometimes. And unlike magical beasts, the way a human moves isn't so simple, so they would be dead meat if they couldn't predict their opponent's next move. If he were wielding a sword, he would have sliced her throat, not her wrist. Goto Ryu Fraud stepped in saying it was an exciting match, and asked Hanekawa to relay his words to everyone here. In the interest of building trust between our two countries, I have a proposal for you. He proposed that they should have their S-rank spar one another according to the rules used just now. The chairman of the Hunter Association stepped in saying that it sounded good. However, they should exclude the mage type and non-combatant hunters, since it would be difficult to tell who'd win. Baek Yoonho stated they should add a few more rules while they're at it, saying that you win if you touch your opponent's wrist or back, or if you knock them down. They should also have multiple hunters go against each other instead of one-on-one matches, so it meant you couldn't pick and choose your opponent. Ryu Fraud agreed to the rules, with Korea sending out Baek Yoonho, Ma Dong-wook, Mami Cha, and Lim Taegyu. Japan chose to send Kenzo Tanaka, Minoru Hoshino, Atsushi Kumamoto, and Kanai Tawada, with the chapter ending showing the Night Guild's information card.